I'm Doug Ballinger, Logan's dad, and I started this podcast because my son Logan died of fentanyl poisoning in May of 2020. He was only 32 years old, and he was so much more than his struggle. If you're new here, this space is for raw truth, for stories that break your heart and stitch it back together again. It's a space for parents, friends, and loved ones who are grieving or afraid or confused about how someone they love could be gone from something like this. Today's episode is called How Did This Happen? The Unseen Path to Fentanyl, because I think that's a question so many of us ask. I know I did. I still do. Let's dive right in. It almost never starts with fentanyl. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. That people who overdose on fentanyl must have been hardcore addicts chasing those most dangerous highs. But that's just not the truth. For so many, including Logan, the story started much earlier and in ways that didn't look dangerous at all. For us, it started in a doctor's office. Logan was a little boy, maybe 6 or 7, when he started having trouble focusing in school. He was bright, creative, and full of energy, but he didn't fit neatly into the mold of sitting still, raising his hand, and staying inside the lines. His teacher said he might have ADHD, and the doctors confirmed it. And like most parents who just want their child to be okay, we trusted the system. He was prescribed Ritalin. Now, let me be clear, I'm not here to shame every ADHD diagnosis or medication plan. I know these meds help a lot of kids. But in our case, I've come to believe it was the beginning of a dangerous mindset, that a pill was the answer to something uncomfortable, that feeling off or out of step could be solved with something small and white, wrapped in a bottle with your name on it. And once that seed is planted, it can grow in ways that you just don't expect. Logan took his medication, and at first it seemed to help. But over time, I noticed something else. He just started to believe that if he didn't take a pill, he wasn't okay, that somehow he wasn't enough, just as he was. That breaks my heart looking back. We were doing our best. We loved him. We thought we were helping him stay on track. But what none of us saw, not then, was that we were handing him a subtle message. You need something outside of yourself to function, to succeed, to be okay. And here's the truth. When that belief takes hold in a child, it doesn't just go away. It can show up later in dangerous ways, especially when they're older and the world offers them other pills. And at that age, no one could have imagined fentanyl. It wasn't even on the radar. But addiction, the roots can start quietly, even in childhood. And for Logan, I believe that first prescription was the first link in a long, invisible chain. Adolescence is hard for everyone, but it's especially hard when you're a little different. Logan was different in the most beautiful ways. He was sensitive, smart, wickedly funny, and full of curiosity. He loved music, glass collecting, things that connected him to people. But underneath all that, I think there was always this ache to feel like he belonged. And that's where things start to shift. We had moved again to South Florida. I was working, his mom was working. We thought we were okay. We had a roof over our heads, food on the table, and Logan was old enough to have a little freedom. But South Florida is a place where the party scene isn't just something for adults. It's everywhere. In the schools, on the beach, in their music, in culture. And kids grow up fast there. Way too fast. Logan fell in with a group of friends who, at first glance, didn't seem all that different from him. They might have been a little older, they were bold, they didn't follow rules, and more importantly, they accepted him. He finally felt like he belonged. And that's one of the most dangerous traps, belonging, because the need to be accepted is primal. And if a kid can't find that in healthy places, they'll find it wherever they can, even if it means compromising who they are, even if it means doing things they swore they never would do. We saw changes, little things at first. Logan became more secretive. He told his mom one version of events, told me something else. It took us a while to realize he was triangulating us, keeping us each slightly in the dark, not to be malicious, but to keep his world safe from being interrupted. There was one night I'll never forget. Logan told his mom he was staying with friends, and when he came home the next morning, his hair was twisted into dreadlocks or something close to it. It was so unlike him, I was stunned. And I wasn't mad, I was scared. He had clearly been out all night. There was a look in his eyes that I recognized but couldn't quite place yet. And even though I told him to wash and brush it out, even though I made him stand in the sink until every sign of that wild night was rinsed away, I knew I couldn't wash away whatever had just happened. And looking back, I think that might have been the first time he tried something stronger, something that made him feel powerful, or numb, or connected, or feel nothing at all. We talked to him, we tried to understand, we begged him to be honest. But addiction has a way of silencing the truth. And when you're a teenager, the lines between experimenting and escaping can blur really fast. Here's what I know now: it wasn't about the drugs, it was about the emptiness. And the drugs, at least in the beginning, filled that emptiness. They made him feel brave, or free, or funnier, or more lovable. That's what people don't understand. Kids don't start using because they want to die. They use because they want to feel alive. But eventually, that need to belong, to be liked, to stay in the group, it traps them. And they can't say no anymore. They can't stop. And they don't want to be the one who kills the vibes or walks away from the only place they feel accepted. Logan didn't get there all at once. It was slow, incremental, invisible even to us. But looking back, I can see the trail of breadcrumbs he left and how hard he was trying to hide them. And then there's the illusion of control. There's this line we all hear, or maybe even have said it to ourselves: I've got it under control. That phrase becomes a kind of shield. It protects the person using from facing the truth, and it gives the people around them, the ones who are scared, a momentary sense of relief. But more often than not, it's just an illusion, a dangerous one. Logan was a master of that illusion. He was so smart, he could read a room in a second, sense what you wanted to hear, and deliver it with all the charm and confidence he could muster. He didn't lie in a mean spirited way. He lied because he wanted to protect the version of himself we believed in. He wanted to believe in it too. He told me many times that everything was fine, that he wasn't addicted, that he was just partying, that everyone did it, that I was overreacting. And oh, so many times I wanted to believe him. because it's easier to believe your kid is experimenting than to believe they might die. It's easier to believe they're just being a teenager than to face the fact that they're slipping away right in front of you. But addiction is sneaky, especially early on. There were times when Logan really did have it under control, or at least that's how it looked. He'd be clear eyed, funny, showing up for work, helping out at home, making plans for his future, and then just like that, he'd disappear into this other world again. It was like he was two people. There was Logan, my son, curious, kind, and full of potential. And then there was this shadow self, withdrawn, defensive, unreliable, and numb. And he'd swing between them so fast it gave me emotional whiplash. One day he'd be asking about depression glass we could hunt down together at a flea market. The next he'd vanish for 24 hours and not return calls. I remember a specific time when he was living in Florida on his own. He told us he was enrolled in college, that he was taking care of himself, and that everything was on track. His grandparents were helping him with tuition and rent. But when I showed up unexpectedly, when I climbed those stairs to his tiny apartment above the shops, I saw the truth. It was chaos. Dirty dishes everywhere, empty fast food bags, a mattress on the floor, not a single textbook in sight. The light in his eyes was dimmed, and the apartment smelled like regret and resignation. And even then, when I asked him, Logan, are you okay? He said, I've got it under control, Dad. And I wanted to scream, You don't! You don't have it under control. But I didn't. I just looked at him, and I think he knew I saw through it. The truth is, people with substance use disorder aren't always in denial, they're in survival. They need to believe they're in control because the alternative is too overwhelming. And for Logan, that illusion gave him a sense of power when everything else felt powerless. But fentanyl doesn't care about illusions. It doesn't care how smart you are, or how loved you are, or how many times you promise to do better. It changes everything. Because with fentanyl, there is no margin for error. There's no working your way back after one bad decision. One fatal dose laced with illicit fentanyl. That's all it took. Logan didn't overdose after years of hard drug use. He didn't live on the streets. He relied on something that was familiar to him, something that he thought was safe. That's what I want people to understand. The illusion of control is a lie that's costing us thousands of lives. That one fatal dose, laced with illicit fentanyl, it killed him. Your child doesn't have to be shooting up in an alley to be at risk. They can be sitting in their room, hanging out with friends, going to class, holding down a job, and still, one moment, one pill, one fatal dose, one misstep, and they're gone. Looking back, it's easy to see the signs. But the truth is, we didn't know. We didn't want to know. Or maybe we were just too close to see the full picture. There's this moment I think about a lot. When Logan was in elementary school, he was playing chicken on one of those big landscaping tenders and ended up falling hard. Broke his femur clean through. We rushed to the hospital, terrified, and I remember feeling like the world had stopped. They took him to surgery and put this big external fixator, four thick screws drilled into the bone, connected by a titanium bar. It looked so intense. But Logan, He wore those scars like a badge of honor. He'd show them off to his friends. He liked being the tough kid who survived something. He was tough. He bounced back. And I think part of him liked the attention it brought. Like people could finally see him, notice him, check in with him. And it makes me wonder how many kids are walking around with invisible pain, just waiting for someone to ask if they're okay? What we didn't know then is that emotional pain doesn't heal like a broken bone. There's no cast, no crutches, no clear x ray to tell you everything's back in place. Logan was carrying things I couldn't see: pressure, insecurity, maybe even shame. Shame for not living up to expectations, shame for needing help, shame for being different. And you know what shame turns into when it's not spoken? It turns into silence, then self doubt, then self medication. And still, he smiled, he made jokes, he made plans. He was so good at pretending to be okay that sometimes I even believed it. Even at a young age, he had always loved our trips to flea markets, hunting for depression glass. He could spot a valuable piece from a mile away. He'd haggle like a pro. And if he found a good teapot, he'd set it aside to give to his mom. He was thoughtful like that. Even while he was spiraling, he could still be that kid. That's the hardest part to explain. How someone can be both things at once. Logan wasn't just addicted. He wasn't some stereotype. He was layered, complicated, beautiful, and hurting. And we didn't know how much. We didn't know how many nights he cried, or how hard he was fighting his own mind, or how dangerous the world of street drugs had become. I had no idea how easy it was to buy heroin or counterfeit pills, how common it was for fentanyl to be pressed into fake Xanax or Adderall, drugs that looked real, felt real, but they were anything but safe. We had conversations. We warned him. We tried to hold him accountable and surround him with love. But by the time fentanyl came on the scene, it was already too late. One fatal dose. That's all it took. He didn't want to die. He didn't think he would. And yet, here I am, telling his story because he can't. If you've made it this far in the episode, thank you for being here. A few things that I think parents need to know. I know it isn't easy to hear, and it wasn't easy to live through, and it's even harder to say out loud. But I'm here to say it because Logan can't. And because if you're a parent, you need to know what we didn't know. Because this epidemic is not what you think. It's not just happening in big cities or broken homes. It's happening in the suburbs, in small towns, in middle schools, in nice neighborhoods. It's happening to kids who play sports, who make good grades, who say yes, ma'am, and no, sir. Addiction doesn't care about your last name. Fentanyl doesn't care how good your kid is. And silence is costing us everything. So here's what I want you to know. Really deeply know. Number one, it doesn't start with fentanyl. It might start with a prescription, a party, a moment of curiosity, experimentation. Logan didn't set out to destroy his life. He just wanted to feel better. And in the beginning, the drugs worked. They quieted that noise. helped him fit in, and made him feel something. But fentanyl changed the rules. There is no safe experimenting anymore. Number two, addiction is not a moral failure. Your child is not weak. They're not bad. They are just hurting. They're coping, and they are terrified to admit that they have lost control. Punishing them doesn't pull them out. Shaming them pushes them deeper in. You have to meet them with love and truth at the same time. And yes, that's a hard balance. I didn't always get it right. I don't think any of us do. And number three, don't wait. Don't wait until it gets worse. Don't wait for a wake up call, because sometimes that call never comes. Sometimes it's a knock on the door. Sometimes it's a phone call that shatters your life in a single sentence. If you even have a gut feeling that something is off, trust that feeling. Ask the hard questions. Start the uncomfortable conversations. Search the room. Search the backpack. Search your own heart for the strength to do what you need to do. Because this is a different world now. And the cost of pretending not my kid is far too high. Number four, educate them. Show them what fentanyl looks like. Pull up pictures. Watch documentaries. Read the headlines together. Teach them that all it takes is just one pill and it can end everything. And not because they're weak, but because fentanyl is that powerful. You'd show your kid how to swim before letting them near a pool. You talk to them about seat belts before they get in a car. So talk to them about this conversation that could save their lives. And number five, there is still hope. If your child is struggling, it's not too late. You are not alone, and neither are they. There are people who care, programs that help, and even in the wreckage, there is still something worth saving. Keep fighting, keep listening, and keep showing up, because love doesn't cure addiction, but it can build the bridge back. And my final thoughts. I didn't get to save Logan. I will carry that ache for the rest of my life. But if this podcast, this story, this moment, if it wakes up one parent, if it reaches one kid before they take that pill, if it cracks open the silence even just a little, then Logan's voice is still here, still making noise, and still saving lives. Thank you for listening, and thank you for honoring my son Logan by being here with me. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it. Don't keep this story to yourself. It might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. In future episodes, we'll explore more resources, and we'll talk about other drugs that are entering the scene that are even more fatal than fentanyl. You can find us on Facebook at Rex Logan's Dad, or follow us on Spotify and Amazon Music Podcast. And until next time, hold your people close, say the hard things, and never stop fighting for the ones you love. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent any longer.